Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Munish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant. This is part two of our play-in preview. We spoke about the Eastern Conference team yesterday, and today we'll talk about the Western Conference, and it doesn't get bigger than this, does it? The Lakers take on the Warriors. Now, a few weeks ago, we were talking about the play-in tournament and discussing its pros and cons, and we're talking about how Steph might be in the play-in and Zach LaVine and Ja Morant. But guess what? You have LeBron in the play-in. How Adam Silver must be licking his lips. This is exactly what he hoped for, like LeBron to advertise the play-in. What do you think?
Yeah, he'll lick his lips now. If the Lakers drop one game and everyone's getting nervous, his ass is going to be on fire at the prospect of a postseason without the Lakers in it. So he's licking his lips, hoping the Lakers get through either through game one or game two. Otherwise, he's not going to like it very much.
I mean, if the Lakers don't make it to the playoffs, I don't think we'll see a play-in game ever again because you would. It was exactly what he hoped for, but also not exactly what he hoped for. It would become that kind of a weird situation. But let's get to the game. Steph versus LeBron. They've played numerous times in the conference finals. This is a play-in game, kind of different. It's a one-off scenario.
Right.
If it was a 7-game series, I'd pick the Lakers probably in 5 or max in 6.
You think 6? This Warriors team takes Lakers to 6.
Max in 6. One game, I say the Warriors have an equal shot, and I might be made fun of after the game because LeBron will come off and be a plain LeBron and whatnot.
No, they have a legit chance. I agree. I think
it's just because of Steph Curry. I mean, you put Steph Curry in a team. This is from Jon Toscano Anderson the other day. They asked if the Warriors. He was asked if the Warriors have a genuine chance in a playing game, and he's like, if you go into a street fight with Mike Tyson, you always have a chance.
Sure.
If you go into a basketball game with Steph Curry, you always have a chance. And I totally get it. I 100% agree with it. I think in a one-off game, Steph Curry, I think he has an equal chance. Beat LeBron, beat AD, beat Lakers, beat whoever.
Sure. I think the counter argument from most would be Mike Tyson's all good and everything, but LeBron's probably George Foreman or Ali in this analogy, and you don't knock him out. It just doesn't happen.
But there's always a chance.
Yeah. No, I think one-off game. When sports is so intrinsically linked with gambling, and any big game gets the kind of attention it does because there's money on the line. There's mad money on the line, and this game would probably see the kind of viewership that the NBA hasn't seen in quite some time. This will probably be one of the most watched sporting events in recent memory. The only tragedy for the NBA is that this wasn't an 9th versus 10th match. This is not exactly one and done. The loser still has a chance to redeem themselves, but it's as close as you can come to a March Madness one and done sort of situation with the biggest players and names in the game. So it's mouth-watering. It really is. And you're right. I think they have a fair shot. It's going to be one of those situations where the Warriors would need to be at their absolute best. They would still need the Lakers to slip up and make errors here and there to pull through. But stranger things have happened, and with Steph Curry on the court, anything can happen.
Yeah, I think the one biggest danger for Lakers is that they haven't played enough together.
Yeah.
I know LeBron's back. He played the last few games and he didn't look like he missed a minute at all. AD is back. He was scratchy when he returned, but he looks like he's back. He's scoring 30 points again. He's getting 10 rebounds and blocking games, match-winning blocks and all of that. So looks like the Lakers are kind of back, but I think the team chemistry might still be a dangerous situation for them given that they're not played together. This is exactly like the Clippers last season, right? I mean, they were a great team and on paper they were probably even the favorites, or one of the favorites. But you saw how they crashed and burned against the Denver Nuggets. They almost crashed and burned against the Mavs as well.
Against the sideboard also. They crashed and burned against that as
well. Paul George always gets a mention.
Pandemic P.
But I think it's the same problem with the Lakers this season as well. I mean, they haven't played enough together. You could say that they played the entire season last year and all of that. But it's a new look team. At the end of the day, you have Dennis Schroeder who's coming in. KCP does not look like the KCP from last season. Well, LeBron is LeBron, won't discount him. AD is AD, won't discount him. Drummond, I think he's a weak point there. You think he gets to start first of all?
He should. But I'll tell you what, ever since Drummond's arrival, Marc Gasol's been kind of making a case for himself.
He has something to play for.
Yeah, looks like the greatest impact that Drummond would have is inspiring Marc Gasol to play like himself again. Look, on the chemistry front, I think there's one key difference between the Lakers this season and the Clippers last season. As many similarities as you may have, the key and the similarity, the most dangerous similarity is both superstars coming off of injuries with the risk of aggravating it. It's not like just because they're playing well doesn't mean there's no risk of uh, the injury going into remission or some such. So that's always going to be there. But the key distinction is last season was year one for the Clippers. That was a 46 win team into which they dropped. I mean, they let out a few pieces, but they dropped Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Neither superstar makes it. Neither of them are culture changing superstars as such. And they make it harder even for the existing culture to adapt around them. Very tough when you've got pretty vocal characters in the locker room who are proud of the team and the culture that they've created. And then you have these people that come over and they expect you to adapt to them and to kind of cut out to them and work around them. So in that situation, in year one of the team being together, the kind of absences that they had, and then the bubble, and then the whole, Harold lost a relative, and Lou Williams went to a strip club, and whatever else happened, they didn't make it any easier for themselves. With the Lakers, though it's similar, the superstars missing time, this squad has already won a championship together. They've gone as far as a squad can go, and they've made a bunch of changes, and we'll talk about that. But it's year two. They've already played together. The superstars know each other very well. The other stars seem to work well with and around them. And in LeBron James, they have a culture changer. Any franchise he steps into, just bottom to top. What Pat Riley would take years to do top down, LeBron does in like a year and a half, bottoms up at any franchise. That's incredible. He's very similar to Tom Brady in that sense. You go there and just the whole environment changes at the franchise. And AD is again, it's a lot easier to work with AD than apparently it is to work with Kawhi or Paul George. So that's the key difference. Now, the other part and the most critical moving part here, the variable, is all the changes that the Lakers made. And these were all critical pieces to the chip puzzle. In the regular season, it was Avery Bradley, he's not there. Rondo, playoff Rondo, he's not there. Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, they're not there. So these are some of the key departures. You had J.R. Smith and a couple of others move in and out, but waiters. But these are the main pieces. Now, who did they add in this process? They added, I'm going to say THT, though he was around, but they added him in terms of the kind of minutes that he got this season. Kuz's minutes went up. They added Montrezl Harrell. They added Marc Gasol. They added Andre Drummond. They added Dennis Schroeder. They added Wes Matthews. And then they added Ben McLemore. That's a whole host. That's almost an entire squad. To integrate them and to get them into the same championship mindset is tough. If there's anyone that can do it, it's the guy leading the team. Mm-hmm. And then they've got Dudley to keep spirits up high. That's the real MVP in the background. So,
of course,
the one thing I will say about all these pieces is it should be a blessing in disguise, the unfortunate absences of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, because now the coaching staff have no excuse when it comes to knowing their rotations, knowing when to use in what scenario, when to use whom in what scenario, and how do you make adjustments like you did last season. Like the Portland Trailblazer series, you relied heavily on size and you kind of bullied them off the court. Houston Rockets went small ball. Lakers went small ball. No Dwight Howard, not much JaVale McGee. A lot more of Markieff Morris, AD at the 5, and they got it done. So all of these permutations, he should have had down pat because he had so much time to experiment with all of the other pieces while LeBron and AD were off. So that's how I see it. There are challenges, but as long as AD and LeBron are fit, I think everything else falls into place. All the chemistry, passing, movement, Schroeder, LeBron, Marc Gasol, all three of them have been excellent passers. They've all linked up with everyone, including the new guys, very well. Most of the key pieces are there. Everything else, you just put the ball in LeBron's hands, ask him to figure it out, or throw it to AD in the low post and ask him to figure it out. So as long as these two guys are fit, I think everything else can be smoothed out. That's where they are a little different from the Clippers.
Of course, I've got to give it to that. On paper, definitely is not a competition at all. I mean, who's going to get rebounds for Warriors, right? There's nobody. You got to depend on Kevin Looney. I don't think so. So I think AD and Drummond are going to grab every rebound out there. Just have to hope that Steph has a great night and scores 45, 50. That's the only chance they have. If there's one guy I would want to guard AD, it's Draymond Green. I mean, what a battle that would be. On size, it's not even close.
Yeah.
But if you have one guy giving out his 100%, who will gave his life and soul literally to guard AD. I think Draymond Green versus AD is going to be an absolute treat to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a great clash 3-4 years ago, and it was when the Pelicans played the Warriors. They almost took the Warriors, by the way, that Pelicans side with Rondo and AD. That was a much younger AD with not as many tricks up his sleeve as he has now. And it's also a slightly older Draymond with not the same level of defense and physical tenacity as he had back then. It's a no contest for me. Draymond against AD now, that's a butchering waiting to happen. It genuinely is. On both ends of the floor, it's a no contest. I expect Draymond to get annihilated by Anthony Davis. So it's all going to boil down to what separation and difference can Steph Curry create with his scoring, and can Wiggins step up. I think he's key. If he can get points on the board and defend, if he can be a two-way wing that they need him to be, this is an interesting matchup. Otherwise, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past the Warriors. They've been playing with 8-man rotations for the entire month. They lost like one game in the last 9 or 10 or something like that, and they went 6-0 the last homestand. They went 6-0, so they're a streaky team.
Yeah.
Lakers, well, they're just getting back to form. I think if there was ever a chance for the Warriors to upset the Lakers, this is it. They got to go all in. I think also that the Warriors are more motivated because I think they need the number 7 spot more than the Lakers need the number 7 spot.
Sure.
Because Warriors versus Phoenix Suns would be a much nicer matchup for the Warriors. The Lakers could take on anyone. So I think they'll be a little more relaxed and they could go out and beat the Grizzlies or the Spurs, which is the other game I also want to talk to you about. Now, the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
The Grizzlies have been amazing. I mean, they had a great chance to finish number 8. If they had a little more experience, they would have probably beat the Warriors. They came back from behind. Amazing season so far. A great young squad. I think that's a squad to watch out for in the future as well. The next 2-3 years, I think they're going to be right up there with Ja Morant leading them. Any chance that the Spurs have against the Grizzlies? Do you think? I don't think so. I think the Grizzlies should easily waltz past them.
They should, and all year long I've been saying I want to see Ja Morant in the playoffs. Let's start with a one-done game, and that's a format you would know very well from college. So on paper, common sense, all of these things say the Grizzlies should ease past the Spurs. Spurs maybe even got a little lucky getting the 10th spot because the Pelicans were pushing on hard. Kind of.
The Spurs had the toughest schedule in the entire NBA. They had to beat Milwaukee Bucks by scoring 140 plus against them.
Yeah, and they had to rely on had to rely on Sacramento losing some momentum in the process. So the only thing that prevents me from saying no, it's over, just don't even bother watching the game. The only thing that prevents me is it's a Greg Popovich team. Maybe I have some PTSD from the 2000s of betting against the Spurs and then burning my fingers, but the biggest reason is the kind of it's a curious mix of veteran experience that can still ball in San Antonio and a lot of young players that only they know how to utilize. Most of these guys are unheard of around the league. These are not household names, and yet they put up solid numbers. Like if you're listening to this podcast, go ahead, look up the squad, San Antonio Spurs. Look at all the players that are scoring double digits every other game and playing pivotal roles. See if you've heard of them. Like a lot of these players, maybe the names sound familiar, but these are not household names and they're still putting up solid numbers. I love that depth. I love that distribution. I thought they were superior to the Memphis until I think you pointed out a short while ago that Memphis have like the third highest bench scoring in the league.
Yep.
It'll be interesting because I think it'll come down to that. It'll come down to distribution of load. Because otherwise, in a one and done game, looking towards your young superstar who's in this scenario for the first time to kind of be Superman, he'll advised. I mean, if he turns out to be a Magic Johnson and can do it, great. But if it goes down to distribution of load and if it's even close in the third and fourth quarters, I'd kind of give Spurs the advantage because I think they defend slightly better than the Grizzlies, slightly. But it's a Greg Popovich team and they've got the experience and he's been in all these situations.
There though. Memphis Grizzlies are the most experienced playing team amongst the four. They played a playing game last year, if that counts for anything.
Whatever, okay. But in terms of but does that compare to like DeRozan losing to LeBron in the Eastern Conference 9 years in a row? Like that, those topics, that's tough love. Speaking of which, something that I mentioned just a short while ago. I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it's kind of comedy somewhere in tragedy, which is should the Warriors somehow scrape through in that first game? which means the Lakers now have to play the winners of Memphis versus San Antonio. Let's assume San Antonio scraped through in that first game. Tough luck, Ja Morant and the Grizzlies, but okay. So then you have a situation yet again, 10 years in the running now, of DeMar DeRozan playing LeBron James in an all or nothing game where he could get knocked out and his season gets done. He had like years of doing this in the East. Toronto would somehow come to the semis, somehow come to the conference finals. And there's LeBron with Miami or Cleveland and boom, knocked out. Tough game, great fight, boom, knocked out. And then finally, DeRozan moves to the West. LeBron comes right behind him, and next season he's there in the finals again in the West, and he's kind of licking his wounds, DeRozan. And I love DeRozan; he's one of my favorite players. So there's kind of that to look forward to. There's a possibility that's kind of funny.
Any chance that the Grizzlies or Spurs could upset the Warriors or the Lakers if they in the second play-in game?
Yeah, I don't think it's no, not happening.
I'm kind of worried if the Warriors had to face the Grizzlies again. I think it'll be a much more closer contest. It already was one. You already saw one close contest over the weekend. I really think the Grizzlies are a dangerous team that is kind of underrated right now.
They are.
I really want to avoid them if I can, and rather take the 7th seed than face them again. And
for sure, but look at it this way, right? One of these teams is going to play. Let's say the Grizzlies win. Let's just assume that happens in the first game. They're playing either the Lakers or the Warriors. If they're playing the Lakers, they're playing the defending champs, further wounded and insulted by a loss to the Warriors of all teams, the eighth placed team, and playing for their lives to stay alive in the tournament. I wouldn't want to face that Lakers team with LeBron and AD. That's not happening. So then that's not happening. So now you think, okay, Lakers go through. What if the Warriors stay back and the Grizzlies have to play the Warriors? You let Steph Curry, as motivated as he's been all year, with no support. He's been triple teamed, quadruple teamed, pentuple, or whatever the word is, teamed all throughout the season because the defense has literally nobody else to guard on the court. And he won the scoring title in that season.
Yeah.
You give this guy a whiff of the playoffs. And then you give him that insult to injury of LeBron walking over him into the postseason. And you say, okay, you have one more shot. Do what you can to get your team, or you're out, your season's over, go back home and make cooking videos or TikToks or whatever with your wife. I wouldn't want to face that Steph Curry either. So I don't think there's a positive outcome whichever way this goes for Grizzlies or San Antonio, whoever wins that first game. I don't see either of them making it to the playoffs.
All right then. So that was our Western Conference play-in tournament preview, and it's going to be a cracking 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. I think the Eastern Conference is on Tuesday and the Western Conference on Wednesday. It's going to be a fun time. But that's all the time I have for you today. We'll catch up tomorrow and we'll talk about the MVP and all the other awards as well.
All right, man. Cheers. Take care. Bye.